Welcome to a new season for the S.A.G.E Holistic Show. My name is Emily Sellis and I am your host. Today's episode, we are going to introduce you to the new members over at S.A.G.E Holistic Health and Wellness Center, our organization. And we have a lot of great things in store for you. We're going to be talking about the 4 pillars of wellness that we believe in at S.A.G.E: nutrition, exercise, mental health, and spirituality. We believe these are foundational to holistic well-being. And you're also going to hear what holistic means to each of our team members. Stay with us. S.A.G.E is a 501c3 nonprofit organization building community by providing education and counseling about physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. We encourage all of our listeners to find their own path to what holistic wellness means to you. Okay, so good morning to everybody. We are S.A.G.E Holistic Health and Wellness Center. The S.A.G.E family is together again. This is our 3rd annual holiday special. We are here to chat about all things holistic. And also we want to go over the pillars of wellness that we believe in here at S.A.G.E and that our services and our education back us up on. It is nutrition, exercise, mental health, and spirituality. So for us, this is all fun things because this is what we're all about. So I just want to welcome all of you for joining us. Please feel free to put any questions in the comment thread and we will absolutely get to those if we're able to. But for now, I just want to start by having all of us introduce ourselves, share about what drew us to being at S.A.G.E, what brought us into the S.A.G.E family, and what holistic means to you, because that's a big part of what we do here. And we want to champion the fact that there are so many different ideas of what holistic means and that all of those are absolutely right. So I'm going to have S.A.G.E go ahead and start. If you can introduce yourself, your role at S.A.G.E and how you got to S.A.G.E, all that good stuff.
Sure, thank you. Hi, I'm S.A.G.E and I am a teen therapist. My passion is working with teens and college students as well. And what really drew me to S.A.G.E was this commitment to treating that person as a whole and not just one aspect of it. So until S.A.G.E, I don't think I've encountered too many mental health organizations that offered, yoga and Reiki and nutritional therapy and spiritual coaching. So I think that's what really drew me to S.A.G.E.
Thank you so much, S.A.G.E. Vicki, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Vicki. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist here at S.A.G.E. And what drew me to S.A.G.E was the idea of diversity and healing for all communities, and really just being able to draw and honor the different modalities that come from different cultures. And it's just a really great way for me to express that here and to also kind of explore different modalities of healing that come with just, the holistic approach.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that idea of holistic to you, Vicki, is that where you're saying that cultural piece?
Yeah, I think what holistic means to me is just where we don't exist like in a just by ourselves, like we're impacted by other elements outside of us. And so I've never seen healing as something individualistic. It's always been about like being able to collaborate with others and receive and give and kind of have that interdependence on our community.
Love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Wendy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wendy Milkey. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I just recently joined the S.A.G.E team. And after being in corporate and just different community aspects for so long, I really wanted to hone in on the overall picture and not just focusing on maybe a child's behavior, but how everything is linked together. And so that's really important, I think, when we are looking at behaviors and symptoms that come into play. One of my main questions is, right, like, how are you feeling inside, right? What are you eating? Are you feeling like you're eating healthy? Are you exercising? What kind of, culture and spirituality plays into those roles? And as I was beginning to kind of explore those more, S.A.G.E really just popped out to me. And I know, Emily, we were able to engage in conversation very quickly about that. So I think just going from a bigger picture to hone in on really what all those aspects are. And so that's really exciting to be a part of this team now.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And so that idea of holistic to you, then it sounds like you're saying really means just being able to look at the whole person and bring all aspects in rather than having it be kind of one part that you're looking at. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
I just think, when we, and kind of new mommies and postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression are really some things that I love working with those individuals and who are struggling with that. And sometimes it's hard to be a parent. And when you're not getting enough sleep, when you're not getting enough, nutrients and things like that, but also knowing that that affects your child too, right? And how they are eating and how they are sleeping also affects that. So I'm really also looking forward to hear what Kaylee has to say about that and how nutrition really affects our bodies. So I'm here to learn as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think that's what I love too. I mean, from each and every one of you guys, I always learn and we all grow together. I mean, you guys all bring such a unique approach to this team, and I'm so grateful for that. So thanks for bringing that up. Kaylee, I'm going to have you go. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kaylee Noland. I'm the nutritional therapy practitioner here at S.A.G.E. And to me, like, I saw S.A.G.E and I was like, I need to work here because I had previously interned at a holistic health center that was just nutrition based, but I felt like, it was missing like key things that have to do with nutrition. And I feel like S.A.G.E kind of brings everything holistic together. And it's not just about food. It's not just about exercise or mental health. It encompasses all of these things. And I love that because all these things are so heavily connected to one another and balance each other out and affect each other. So yeah, and holistic health to me means healing within and just not healing like externally, but healing internally and honoring bio-individuality as well.
Yeah, can you explain what that is? I learned that term from nutritional therapy practitioners. Yeah. And so if you could share that term with all of us, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so bio-individuality is kind of looking at the person not in like a cookie cutter sense, because not everything affects someone the same way. Like eating dairy affects everyone in a different way, and exercising affects everyone's mental health in a different way. And like just not having these like strict ideas and rules, and kind of just looking at the person as an individual and not, in on its own, and like not with these like strict, ideas and everything.
Yeah, I mean, we all have unique fingerprints. It's kind of like that, right? So
exactly.
I love that, where we get to approach healing from that unique way as well. And we really do look at that here at S.A.G.E, where we want to meet our people, our clients, where they're at, and really honor the differences and not expect that they would heal the same way that anyone else would. So
exactly.
Thank you so much for bringing that in. Emily Maynard.
Hi, everyone. So glad that you're joining us here for this S.A.G.E chat. And I was drawn to S.A.G.E because I'm interested in the idea of community well-being. And S.A.G.E is a place where there's a lot of people who are interested in that with all of our various skills and abilities. And we've come together to try to build a place where the community can join us in that journey as well, finding out what does healing look like for you? What does healing look like for your family? How do you bring the goals and values that you have to light in a rich, expansive, interesting, creative, and ever-changing way? So I'm so happy to be here. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist, so I'm under the mental health pillar of S.A.G.E. And as much as I, know that the other pillars impact that as well, nutrition and exercise and spirituality and mental health all come together to create a whole person who is able to thrive in their community, and in their family and in their life and internally as well. I would say what holistic means to me is this sense of an expansive idea of stories and experiences, and the fact that those are all welcome, and those are part of what makes being a human so challenging, but also so wonderful and so lovely. I'm thinking of a writer and therapist that I respect, Resmaa Menakem, and he talks about how he has found that resilience is something that's not just in the individual, but it's actually in communities. So the ways that we come together and support each other through times of difficulty or challenge is really us holding resilience for each other. And that's what I love about SAGE and what I love about holistic well-being in general.
Gosh, that's such a beautiful concept to bring in here, Emily. And I think that, I think we could all agree, like the world is kind of hurting right now. I mean, the world has been through a lot. Our communities have been through a lot, and more than ever, that's needed. And even though there's the uphill battles and the challenges in that, I mean, that's where the juice is, right? That's where the good stuff is being able to join together and not isolate, and not try and just do everything on our own, and open ourselves up and be vulnerable to a community and what that means, because it's not easy. I think a lot of people would say it's easier to do it on your own, right? Because you don't have to deal with all the relationships. And for all of us therapists, right? Like that, the relationships are a big part of what we do. I mean, it's every single client we have, we're talking about relationships. So such an important thing. Thanks for bringing that in, Emily. Sydney, can you introduce yourselves to everybody?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sydney. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist here at SAGE. What drew me to SAGE ultimately, same with Kaylee. I looked up a wellness center near me, found SAGE, and I was like, I have to work there. And I think what I really loved was just the idea that healing is so much more than just mental health, than physical health. It's all of it, and SAGE really seemed to combine all aspects of that with the yoga, the Reiki, the self-defense classes, with therapy, with nutritional therapy. There's so much that SAGE offers, and it's just all, speaks to the whole person, which holistic means that mind, body, spirit, and ultimately, you can't really just treat one aspect. They're all so connected. And what guides me in my treatment is the fact that we are all able to heal on our own. We're all self-healers, but sometimes we just don't really know how to go forward with that information, and it can be scary and intimidating. And so, therapists, nutritional therapists, we act as guides. And I think that's, it's a pillar of SAGE. The G is guidance. And I think that's really important, is just helping to guide the individual towards their own healing, towards their own power, essentially. And yeah, I just love that SAGE offers all of that and offers multiple components to healing other than just mental health.
Thank you, Sydney. And I love that, that excitement that all of you guys are sharing about SAGE. It's a contagious thing, and it's something that we hear so often, and it's something I feel so much gratitude for. Not because I'm the founder and it's everyone is doing the same thing that I'm doing, but it's the collective, right? This is a response to what the collective needs. And because it's something that you guys are all excited about and what other people are excited about, that's what makes it land, right? Is because it's what the community wants. It's what we need as people. And we know deep inside of ourselves, like it's really getting to these basics. And that's what we're going to be talking about with these pillars, is how do we get to the basics? Because you're right, it is a hard thing to know, looking out there and seeing all the different options of like healing or different plans or different ways to do that, or different people to follow, or different things. Sometimes it's content overload. And that's what we really try to do, is kind of get it back to the basics with these 4 pillars, and really give people a place to spring off of, to springboard from, when they tune into themselves and when they tune into what they need, as they're the experts and we're the guides along the way. They're the experts of their life, right? So Sadaf, we will bring it home with you for introductions.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Nice seeing everyone. Thanks for joining our live. I am Sadaf. My name is Sadaf Shalchian, and I am one of the associate marriage and family therapists here at SAGE. What drew me to SAGE was Well, actually, it was when we first started launching Sage, which, oh my gosh, just looking back at the humble beginnings gives me funny feelings. So I love sitting here after a couple of years and just seeing Sage grow and really practice what we preach. So what brought me to Sage was that I really was looking for a place that focuses on a person's holistic wellness instead of their illness and condition. And that, because that's what support looks like to me, to look at a person as a whole. And Sage does an amazing job doing that by offering all these different classes and different practitioners and providers to be able to collaborate with one another to provide the best service that we can. So yeah, just like everyone else said, it's not just about mental health or physical health. The support, I believe, should look like focusing on physical, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. And I look at different units like the body is a system, our society is a system, and I have the systemic approach. And I think if one of the puzzle pieces is not working as it should for us in our own context, then the whole system is not functioning as well as it can. So here at Sage, that's what I admire. That's what it motivates me to also do as a therapist, and it creates so much support for me to be able to provide that holistic health, to be able to collaborate with all these amazing practitioners and therapists and psychiatrists and nutritionists and all that we offer. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I think you're bringing a great point up with regards to like the awareness, like how do we know which part to focus on? And the A in Sage is for awareness. I know we're kind of like weaving these things in. It really just all does go together. And the awareness that you're speaking of is like, well, how do we know which piece to pay attention to? And I think what's coming through from all of you guys, again, is that interconnectedness, that interdependability, like Vicki said, about how we're all part of this, the social piece. We are a social species and we need each other to thrive and all of that. So it's really the undertone of what's going on. And I just love what all of you guys have said. So I think everybody can really hear through all these introductions and what holistic means to them, like that there is a uniqueness to it all. Like you all said something different, but yet there's these cohesive ways where it all just gels together and we're all kind of shooting for the same goal, the same purpose of being connected in our communities with each other and with ourselves. So with that, I want us to kind of shift gears and we're going to move into talking about these 4 pillars. There's going to be a blog that's up on the website today that kind of goes over these a little bit as well. But starting with nutrition, we're going to also then move to exercise, mental health, and spirituality. We're going to talk about these briefly. I'm going to give our Sage team a chance to kind of share, maybe there's tidbits, maybe anecdotes, maybe books, maybe fun things they've learned, maybe personal experiences of what comes up around that pillar. And so, like I was saying before, Sage really conceptualizes health and wellness by getting basic with these, looking at our nutrition, looking at our exercise, looking at our mental health, and then looking at our spirituality. And of course, within each of these different pillars, there's so much, right? There's so much. But what we want to really have people tune into on their healing journey is what works for them and what is helpful to them. And so there's a lot of trial and error in healing, as you guys know. Like we don't know what the answer is, otherwise we'd all be healed and we'd all already be at the place where we want to be. And so that's part of the fun, shall I say, of healing. It's also the part that's really frustrating too, because it can be a lot of effort and energy that can feel like it didn't go anywhere, but even the stuff that doesn't go anywhere went somewhere. So because you got to learn from that. So we're going to start with nutrition and just talk about what in nutrition is meaningful, what's helpful, what have you guys learned from this. I'm going to start by sharing kind of for me this year, and this is kind of a look back year of like what has come up around this. And for me, looking at what I've learned from nutrition, I'll say we all have different strengths. Nutrition is an area that I work on. I mean, I work on all these areas, but I feel like nutrition is an area that I continue to learn and grow in even more. And one thing for me that this past year has really shifted is I want Kaylee to share on this too, but I stopped drinking coffee and I started drinking, this is not a commercial for mud water, but I started drinking mud water, which has adaptogens. And I'm like, still, I've read the label like a million times. And I'm like, I just know that I feel better, right? So just following that instinct. But for me, it's been a game changer. And these pillars, so that's nutrition. I'm putting that in my nutrition category, but it really affects my mental health, right? Like I'm not having these like crashes that I was having from coffee. I'm not having the like too much energy, too much anxiety. So it shifted me a lot. And it's also shifted me spiritually too, like where I am able to get more still and I am able to tune into myself. So I just wanted to share that and then ask Kaylee, because I know you're going to talk about nutrition stuff too, but about if you could share about adaptogens and why those are helpful for people.
Yeah, so a lot of times, like when people will drink like black coffee in the morning on an empty stomach, it can spike your blood sugar, it spikes your cortisol, and so a lot of times people will just crash or whatever. But mud water like has adaptogens in it, and it's not going to have that same effect on you. It's going to be healing towards you and give you energy. And again, it's bio-individual. Some people may not be as affected by coffee, but some people are heavily affected by it. So adaptogens is a great alternative instead of getting that blood sugar and cortisol spike first thing in the morning.
Thank you for explaining that again.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, Kaylee, if you wanted to kind of jumpstart the conversation about nutrition. And again, I know you focus a lot on nutrition and mental health, right? So if that is part of what comes up too, or just you guys also be thinking about any personal things or books or anything like that you guys want to share about nutrition.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think nutrition, it's so much more than just, oh, you should eat this, you should eat that. It's a holistic thing, and exercise can affect like what you want to eat, and your mental health affects what you want to eat. And that's why like SAGE is so great, because it brings in all of those things together. So that's why like I love working here and everything, because it opens the doors for that, and I can talk to my fellow coworkers about like mental health more in depth, whereas I wouldn't get that advantage at a normal like nutritional center. But here I have therapists I can talk to and ask their opinion on how do you think, like how have you seen like with your previous like clients how nutrition affects their mental health and everything. So it's really nice having you guys here as assets.
Yeah, that collaboration is huge. And I know we had a team meeting not long ago where we were talking a lot about that, about how do we do collaborations, how do we do our treatment team approach, and that's been such a valuable thing to be able to kind of refer back and forth to the different disciplines and services that we have and really learn from each other on how we can best serve the client.
Totally, yeah.
But does anyone else want to jump in about nutrition, this pillar that we're talking about?
Yeah, I can add something. I've been really focused on, I'm in a school program, and I've been very focused this semester on inflammation and the role of inflammation in mental health, and how it ultimately underlies every mental health condition, specifically anxiety, depression, ADHD. And the food we eat really impacts us. Like food equals mood. You know what I mean? What you eat will directly impact your mood.
Totally.
If you're eating a lot of things that spike your blood sugar, your mood's going to crash at some point in the day, just like your energy, right? And so I think it's really important to look into what you're eating, these ingredients that you're eating. They all impact mental health in so many different ways. They're all very connected to different mental health conditions. And inflammation is, we're talking about nutrition right now, but inflammation can happen from eating food such as like refined sugars and carbs and fast food and things like that. Or inflammation can also happen from being really stressed all the time. The body goes into, it starts the inflammatory response because it thinks that it's in danger with all this stress. Right. Evolutionarily, when we were stressed, and when our ancestors were stressed, they were having to, it was a life or death situation, having to run away from a saber-tooth tiger. But here we're facing bills and traffic and all this stuff, but it still impacts the body the exact same way. And so any stress is significant, and it kind of shuts down the main organs, main functions, such as the digestion system, to put us in that fight or flight space, right? And so I think it's really important to be mindful of just inflammation as a whole, stress, but what you eat really impacts how you feel. And I think that gives us power, because that's something that we can absolutely control, right? You're eating every single day. It's easy to heal in that regard, because you're able to make those changes in any way that you can, right? Such as cutting out coffee. That's a huge step. I'm in the process of trying to do that as well. It's not easy.
No.
But yeah, just making little changes like that could really help your mood and mental health just in general.
Yeah, totally. I love how you brought in the fight or flight point, because I think like today, a lot of people don't realize that they are in that state constantly. And when you are in that state, your body can't like heal as well as it could be if it wasn't. And certain foods that we eat put ourselves in that fight or flight stage. If we're eating too much sugar, that spikes our blood sugar, and then our body thinks something's wrong, so we go into that fight or flight stage, and then that spikes our cortisol, and then that affects everything else. And so I'm really glad you brought up that point, Sydney.
Sorry, go ahead, Wendy.
That's okay. I started noticing it was really interesting as kind of healers, or just individuals who are on the go all the time. I've really had to implement and try my hardest to meal prep on like a certain day, right? So I will try and meal prep on Sundays, kind of select this space, right? This time for me to do that. Not only is that therapeutic for me, but I notice sometimes I'm going 5, 6, 7 hours in a row. And if I don't, it's really easy to grab something unhealthy. But then I do really notice at the end of the day, right? Like I'm just done or crashed, versus if I do have something prepped and it's healthy, right? And I'm able to eat between meetings, it makes a ton of difference in even just the activity that I'm putting out and the energy that I'm putting out for the day.
Totally. Yeah. Like doing that self-discipline, and even, making a grocery list at the beginning of the week and figuring out like, okay, I'm going to like prep, even just with my groceries, makes like such a difference when it comes to like time management and everything, and not grabbing the like quick convenience food, and getting in that mental space of preparing yourself. Okay, I'm gonna prepare and try and eat something more nutrient dense this week.
I wanna add in a little bit of mental health into our nutrition talk, which is that that approach of mindful eating. I think whatever we're eating, it's important to pay attention to how we feel when we eat and what we eat. Those are some of the first steps in making sure that we're getting a well-balanced meal or snack. And also it helps a lot with understanding ourselves and understanding and communicating with our bodies. Sometimes stress and depression are severe, and it can't be managed alone. So we have to kind of, it would be helpful to kind of look within and understand what are some thoughts that are coming up, what are some feelings that are coming up, and bringing those thoughts up with professionals. But also on another note, I know one of the main things that I learned in S.A.G.E from our nutrition therapists were the brain foods. So complex carbohydrates like brown rice or starchy vegetables, or lean proteins are really important, because it allows our body to think and react quickly, which I had no idea about. Like chicken, meat, fish, eggs, soybeans, nuts, and seeds are really important for our brain health. Or other things that I remember were, of course, fatty acids, which are crucial for the proper function of our brain and actually nervous system. So, which can be found in fish, meat, eggs, nuts, and flaxseed. So I usually try to have a really good salad that has all these different things in them at least a few times a week, so that I get those brain foods in. But also, Emily, I really want to try the mud water. So thank you so much for reminding us again. I've been wanting to try it, and I haven't had a chance to order it. So thanks for the reminder.
It's a bit of an acquired taste, but I've got it down. If you want to talk to me, I'll share
Yeah.
how I tweaked it. But I think what I'm hearing from all of you guys, and I know there's some of you that might want to also still share something about the nutrition before we move on. But I'm hearing that, you know, it's a subtle way to address ourselves, like maybe in ways that we don't really think about. And habits that we have can be so powerful and override this logical conversation we're having right now of like, oh, well, we know those things, but this day I'm really busy. I've got to do this and I'm just going to do this. And it's like kind of that survival mode that we get sucked into quite often. So doing that meal prepping, like Wendy mentioned, right? Or like Sadaf was saying, okay, I've got a list here. These are the things I know are brain superfoods. And so I'm going to really just try to do that. It's these tiny little tweaks that we do. And it's not about doing it perfectly either. It's just about remembering, and however often we can keep coming back to this knowledge and this information that we have that we're going to get away from again, but we keep coming back to it. And that's just, I think, an important piece of what we're talking about here today is like, how can we just try and bring in one thing that's small that can really help us tune into that subtleness of how health appears for us. So does anyone else want to say anything about nutrition before we move on to exercise?
Yeah, I do. So I was thinking while everyone was sharing about how therapy would be a huge component to someone that wants to change their relationship to food, since a lot of times food can serve as something that kind of quells our dis-ease, or just it's serving like an emotional component to it as well. So someone who's really wanting to change that relationship, therapy is a really great space that can provide a lot of those inquiries into what we're needing to give ourselves emotionally that we're tending to go towards with food. So that's sort of what I was thinking when everyone was sharing a lot of the, the information that's really important, but just a lot of the emotional components that, because we're, just needing another person to kind of interact with to explore those areas.
Gosh, yeah, Vicki, that's a great point. Because yeah, the emotional world is so interconnected to the food that we eat. And it's such a big part of our culture. Food and relationships come into play with like eating and going out to eat and making choices that might not be the best for us. But the therapists in the group, or a lot of the therapists in our group, are getting certified in EMDR. And I think that was our last consultation where, Vicki, you had talked with the consultant about EMDR and being able to use EMDR for the relationship with food. And I thought that was genius, right? Like being able to really work on it from that angle too. And again, there's so many angles with healing. So if you're listening to this and you feel drawn to that, it's like, okay, we'll try that out and see how that works for you. It may work, it may not. But those ideas are those little nuggets that kind of land for you. Like that's your cue, right? Like to say, okay, let me see if that could be a thing for me that works. So thanks for bringing that in, Vicki. Anyone else on nutrition?
Just wanted to say I'm such a foodie. I have the biggest sweet tooth in the world. So my relationship with food has been interesting, to say the least. And then I watched a video about how food, not only fuels our bodies, but the most important organ, our brain. And they were saying how the food is like the only external substance that we can take in that has direct impact on our brain functions. thinking about all the things that are completely out of control in our lives. So wouldn't we want to make that daily decision to feed our brain with the healthy food and not junk food? So that's kind of changed
Yes.
shifted my brain a little bit.
Gosh, I love that, Sanghae. I love that. And I mean, like, I think it all makes sense to us. And I'm like, it's like the aha moment of like, yes, yes, yes. And then we get into our daily things. And that's why community is important, right? Because we show up, we are all committed to wanting to live a more healthy life, to be in that space of like listening to that inner voice that says, yes, feed me. I want to feed myself healthier foods, right? And then we get off track, but we come back because we have this collective, this holistic collective. We all come together and we are able to support each other in that. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so on to exercise. So body movement is something that we don't have any necessarily direct services here at S.A.G.E at this point in time that serves that, but it's something that I think we all talk about and we all know is such an important piece. I know, Kaylee, you could probably speak to how like the toxins in our body and our circulation and all of that is really influenced by body movement. So I wanted to ask if you don't mind kind of jumping in on that piece.
Yeah. So, exercise, is a great detoxer. When we sweat, it's our body's natural way of getting rid of all the gunk and everything. I know sleep too also goes along with that. I think like when we are sleeping, our spinal fluid also is like being detoxed as well. And when you exercise, that also like helps jumpstart it. And talking about fight or flight mode again, exercise, like certain exercises can heavily reduce cortisol and everything. And so it kind of gets you out of that fight or flight mode while also detoxing. And so it's so important. I know with me, like with my mental health, when I'm not like exercising and everything, like it affects it. And, it goes along with like detoxing as well. And it's just all so connected and everything.
Yeah, there can be quite a buildup of these toxins or just like not getting enough water, for example, too, right? I know that's like, where's the line? Is that nutrition or exercise? But if the exercise is what moves our blood, and when our blood is healthy, and like that's the thing that carries out, it takes out the trash, right? The blood is what really helps move that. And if we're not getting enough water and everything, we're not able to respond to that. But I think sometimes these can be loaded things: nutrition, exercise. So many people talk about it. It's like, the diet industry, the exercise industry, there's so many messages out there about these different things. And so what we really want to focus on here is just the basics and really tuning in again to your body and what your body needs. So for example, with exercise, and, for me this year, as like Kaylee said, managing mental health with exercise, that's a huge one for me too. And it's so easy to get away from that with a busy lifestyle. But what I wanted to kind of bring into the conversation was being able to choose something that is fun or that just feels good, so that it doesn't feel like, oh, I have to go exercise. I have to follow this video that I suck at. And like, I'm not even doing it right. And all, it's like, how can we make this fun? So how can you figure out for you what works? So for me this year, I really committed to getting outside in the dirt. I love hiking. I really had to play around with this, like as my self-care, like, did I want to hike with a friend or did I want to hike alone? Did I want to listen to a podcast in my ear while I was hiking, or did I just need stillness and peace and quiet? And I found for me, as I played around with that, there would be days where I would like be on my phone and doing work from my phone on the trail. And I'm like, well, at least I got outside, right? It wasn't as peaceful as what it is when I just kind of like allow myself to be, but for whatever reason, that's what I needed to do that day. And I've really found that works well for me. And sometimes it's hard to figure out what it is that works well. And that's why it's helpful to hear different people's ideas and different people's experiences. And that's why the collective and the community is so powerful, because we get to hear each other's lives and stories and share, and then it gives us ideas and sparks us into what might work for us. So if you guys have any tidbits or things that you guys want to share about the exercise component, the pillar of S.A.G.E, because exercise truly is something that impacts all of these areas.
Something that's been really meaningful, I think, just in general, is to understand, like you said before, whether or not you want to do it with friends or if you want to do it alone. And I know that a lot of time during the day I am alone. And so I love to go on walks with friends, or the kind of group and area that I live in. We've kind of formed this, wives and moms kind of walking group. And when you're able to go and just be in, you know, kind of togetherness, right? And that's very therapeutic to get that out, and not only being safe, right? Because we're all like, well, I guess we can do it at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. We can all go, we've got all of our flashlights and things like that, but also, right, safety, but also being able to hear other people's stories and kind of just being community with them, and knowing like, hey, it was a hard day, or hear other people's encouragement, and just to be together is so important. It makes exercise a lot more enjoyable when you're in the mood for company.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When it doesn't have to feel like this hard thing, that's when it's like, this is sustainable, right? Who else wants to say something about exercise?
I can go. I am just so amazed at all the different things that I've learned about exercise these past few years. I initially thought that exercise was just for physical health, and it's so profound that when I was going through some burnout from school, work, all these different responsibilities, the books that I was reading were talking about how the main answer to burnout is physical activity and exercise, because our emotions come with so much energy. And one of the ways for us to process our emotions is through exercise, whether it be aerobic or strength training. It helps us reduce anxiety, because it not only releases endorphins, but it gives our mind something else to also focus on, like keeping your breathing steady, which is a part of mindfulness. So we are practicing this other technique while we're exercising, by exercising mindfully. So exercise could be all these different things. Like you, Emily, I love hiking. I love getting into nature. And this one thing that I do is I put weights on my ankles. You can get them from Amazon. And I walk, and I live right by a trail, and it's safe. So I start journaling or writing down my thoughts, or planning while I'm walking and exercising at the same time. Of course, I go to the gym as well, but that one brings up the spiritual component of exercise. It also reduces that emotional inertia, right? Meaning that people who exercise don't necessarily have less frequent or intense negative emotions, but rather we may be better able to recover from these negative emotions when they arise, because we are building this resiliency, we are building this distress tolerance by getting our body to a state that it is going beyond its ability, right? So
Yeah.
with the stress tolerance.
Yeah, I mean that's so great. It's like, it's not that any of these pillars are like, okay, if you do this right, then life is going to be easy, guys. Like if you just get all these pillars in line, then life will be easy. It's not. I wish it could be that, but it's that we can respond to life and life's challenges in a different way, right? In a way that's more resilient, in a way that's more effective, not only for us, but for our immediate circles of people that we interact with, right? When we are taking care of ourselves in these ways. So I love that, Sadaf. Thanks for bringing that piece in. So exercise, anyone else?
Share. So thanks to my sweet tooth, I struggled with weight most of my life, especially during adolescence, when physical appearance and image is so important. So I've tried all kinds of fad diets, but at the end I realized that exercise really is the only method that brings long-term effects. So it's really helped me to, release stress and gain energy. and build self-confidence by like feeling physically strong. Like it was natural to build that confidence. And when I work with clients, who doesn't like to exercise, I always encourage them to go slow and take baby steps. Because if you make such a hefty goal, you're just going to be discouraged and hesitant to begin. And, as you all know, like starting something is like the most difficult part. And so
Yeah.
starting with, 5 to 10 minute stroll in the backyard or neighborhood, and then building it up to longer walks, maybe runs if they want that, and then exploring other activities that they enjoy.
I love that. And thanks for bringing in that vulnerable piece, Sung-Hae, because I think it is a really vulnerable thing and it's hard and it can feel so intimidating to do some of these new things. And I think for some reason, exercise can tend to be one of those ones that feels even more intimidating than others, like because you're physically like moving. It's like an external, it's an outside of our body kind of a thing. And so, yeah, being able to even just give yourself grace around like how hard it is and that this is a challenge, while at the same time, it's like those and also acknowledging the importance of it and being able to do it in a way that's that feels balanced and like not over the top and that feels like sustainable and all of those things too. So thanks for bringing that in.
I just wanted to echo some of the points that everyone's touched on. Exercise is really individual, and we've seen in society that there's so many different diets, there's so many different ways to exercise. But I think the one that's that works the best for you as an individual is to find the one that you enjoy, like thoroughly enjoy, and one that you can stick with and be consistent with, right? If you don't like running, don't run. There's so many other things to do, and there's so many other things to try. And the bottom line is just movement in any way that feels good for you. And if that's stretching for 10 minutes, that's great, right? Because you probably wouldn't have done that otherwise. And that's still movement in some way. And maybe you find that you enjoy it. And then the next day it's 15 minutes and you just add on to that. And I wanted to touch on what Sadaf said about the emotional energy and inertia, and how Emily mentioned that we are all in the process of getting, or most of us are in the process of getting certified in EMDR. And I think something that we learned in our consultation is that walking is a great form of processing, right? Because it's bilateral stimulation, it's moving, it's so I think just finding any way to move your body in like a rhythmic way is really good for emotional processing, trauma processing, just really, moving through those emotions, everything that's going on in your head. And I think that's really important. And again, bottom line is just finding something that you enjoy and can stick with, and just moving in any way that feels good to you.
I love that. Yeah, that is a great point about the walking being bilateral stimulation. And for those of you guys who don't know what EMDR is or what bilateral stimulation is, I mean, there's some blogs on the website you guys can check out about EMDR. But the long and short of it is that sometimes we go through things or experiences that get kind of stored in our systems, and what we can do to help reprocess those is to bring it present and bring it current and become aware of that and being able to reprocess that so it can become more of an adaptive experience. So I love that you brought that point up, Sydney. We're going to move on to mental health. We are trying to finish our SAGE chat by 9 o'clock here to get everybody on their day and going forward in this beautiful Friday. It's sunny out, you guys. So mental health, there's so many different ways to approach this. As you know, lots of us here are therapists. And then Kaylee, really as our nutritional therapy practitioner, works a lot with the mental health aspect of things in her work. So what would you guys throw in here as anecdotes or tips or any thoughts or great books or anything like that that you guys would want to share with regards to mental health as one of our pillars?
Something that right off the bat, I mean, just as a kind of warm up, I love just reading different books that are coming out. And I know that most people love Oprah, right? Anything that has Oprah's name on it, it kind of blows up. And so just understanding and being able to take care of yourself if you love reading. One of the things that I love to do is to understand different parts of myself and why I am who I am and how I became who I am. And so one of those things that I do is read. And so this book that I am going to share today is What Happened to You? And this is by Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And it's really a dialogue that they have. And it's really nice to hear that you're not alone in a lot of the thoughts that you're having. And there's reasons to kind of like, what happened to you, right? Versus like, why are you like that? Or, you know, what happened, you know, like it's just understanding where you came from. And that's so important to have that inner dialogue with yourself as well to kind of understand. And I know as a therapist going through training, part of that is really processing and understanding yourself. And I love knowing that a healed person can also heal people, right? And help heal those individuals around them, heal themselves. And so versus, you know, hurting people, you know, breaking that cycle, figuring out what has happened to you, what is making you who you are, and beginning to know that. One of the ways to internally do that is, or individually do that, I should say, is by reading different things. And then, of course, I'm always going to say, you know, or talk to somebody. And that could include any of us, right? If you are, you know, the smallest thing, what is not making you content in your life? And I think that's so important to just have those conversations and allow those conversations to happen in a safe place. And so we're here for you if you are open to doing that as well, especially during this holiday season when things can get so stressful.
Yeah, we're definitely advocates for lessening the stigma around therapy. Emily, did you have something you wanted to add in here?
Yeah, I was just thinking about one of the things that sometimes when I meet with people who are having their first experience with therapy is that they feel like it's going to be kind of just a way to bring themselves more positive information in their life and get them into a positive place, and then they're done. Then they've achieved therapy, and you know, mental health will be their lot in life after that. But I think, you know, all of us who do this work are laughing because if you're a client of therapy, you know that therapy is a lot of hard work. And sometimes it means really just becoming comfortable with disappointment or challenge in your life, or like Wendy said, what happened to you, and really understanding that in a way that doesn't eliminate it from your future or your life, but allows you to sort of integrate some of that. And that therapy might be a thing that you visit throughout your life at different areas, or when you have different goals, or you feel ready to explore an area of challenge in your life that maybe felt like too much. So when I talk about mental health, I always remind people that it's a lifelong process, and you can go at your own pace, and it's something that can flow in and out of your life over time. So if you've done therapy before and you're ready for a different experience, come to S.A.G.E. We are all so different, and we're able to really either collaborate and share ideas, or give you very different experiences of therapy in whatever way would fit you and your goals right now.
Thanks for bringing that up, Emily. I appreciate that. I mean, there is so many unique things in that. I don't know if we have a blog on that yet, but the unique fit of finding the right therapist, right? And the importance of really celebrating that diversity and celebrating like what it is within you that you feel pulled to and that you feel called to, you know, that you get to have that choice and the power is yours to choose, even if you have a first appointment with a therapist and it doesn't go well. That's okay. Try different therapists. Like it's okay that it doesn't work, because it's different than the medical model, right? Where any doctor can really treat a certain condition. This is more interpersonal. If this is a way that you're wanting to address mental health, and it's not the only way. So I wonder if any of you, I know we've talked a lot today about other things that kind of inwardly flow, like, you know, nutrition and exercise, all of these things impact each other. Does anyone have anything else on this one before we move on to spirituality?
Yeah, I think, I mean, nutrition and mental health are so heavily connected. I remember in college, I majored in nutrition and I minored in psychology. And some people would be like, that's a weird combination. Why are you like doing that? I'm like, and I just didn't understand. I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, they're so connected. Like, what? But it's true. Like, you are what you eat. and your brain is affected like by what you eat and your mental health and your stress levels. And so it's just a lot of people don't even realize that. And so bringing awareness to that, I think that's another thing I love about SAGE is, they're recognizing the relationship between the two.
Yeah, bringing that education in, right? I mean, because we all have tons that we can learn. So thank you for mentioning that, Kaylee. Any last bits? Oh, go ahead, Sung-Hae.
Yeah, so I share this with you during my interview, how I watched this video about this team of experts, like the fitness experts and doctors. They helped this heavily obese woman lose like 2/3 of her weight. And then she immediately gained it back after the program. So they were trying to figure out what was going on. And they discovered that she actually experienced a childhood sexual abuse. And she was using food for her comfort and then using her body as like a shield to desexualize her, hoping that that trauma that she experienced in childhood won't ever happen again. And so just like Kaylee said, right, like focusing only on the physical health or only on nutrition, it's just not as effective because these pillars are so intimately connected.
Thank you for that, Sung-Hae. I wasn't going to share this because of time, but I just think that it's very relatable. I was going to say that Emily, you brought up the component of awareness in the beginning. And I think in order for us to know and become aware of, okay, do we need therapy? Do we not? Do we need to take care of our mental health? And one of the ways is to become mindful of our thought process. What are some things that we're really believing about ourselves that is influencing the way we think, we behave, we feel on a daily basis? For example, what is holding me back? What is the thought that's holding me back from applying for this job, or from getting in healthy relationships, or from exercising, or from feeling like I deserve the best and deserve love? Would those thoughts be, I don't know, I don't deserve love, or I am shameful, or I'm not lovable, or I'm not good enough at this or that? Could it be I'm not in control, or I'm weak, or I'm powerless? These thoughts really influence the way we show up for ourselves and in the world around us. So one of the books I want to recommend is by Brene Brown, The Gift of Imperfection. And I think that really is a book that helps us with vulnerability and self-compassion. And of course, we're here to help. We're here to direct you to the source that can help you best. So we have our consultation team that can help you with that. It doesn't have to be us. We are a community that helps you get to where you need to go. So we can move on to spirituality.
I love it. Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I do know that some of us, I'm not sure if it's just one or two, have 9 o'clock appointments, which I completely honor. And so if that's you and you need to say goodbye, whoever needs to go, I plan to stay on. I'm going to talk about the spirituality component. Is that you, Wendy? I know you have an appointment, huh?
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, so glad. We'll do this again. We could talk for hours. Have a good day. We'll see you later. So is there anyone else, maybe without having to rush to be done by 9? I mean, does anyone else have anything about mental health that they wanted to share before we move on to that spirituality component? No? Okay. Great. Well, we are going to move on to the final pillar, spirituality. And so I want us to kind of just share here, this word can be meaningful in so many different ways to people. And it can also mean like a period, like there's nothing more, and that's okay too, right? It doesn't have to be that there even is spirituality. And here at SAGE, we really want to honor everyone's individual path on this. when we use the word spirituality, I mean, it's not the same as religious, right? There's very important differences between religion and between spirituality, and spirituality can absolutely be an individual thing, and it can also be woven into a religious thing, right? So being able to look at spirituality in the context for what we're talking about now, and I want you guys to share, what it means to you, or kind of how this pillar shows up for you in your life, or what it means to you. But really looking at that non-physical piece of life, right? And an internal guiding system, like how do we tune into ourselves? How do we get still? What happens in a meditation? Like when we really get quiet, we really tune into ourselves, that internal guidance, if we want to call it intuition, but being able to know what's right and best for us, knowing what our meaning is in life is, knowing what our purpose, like if you're the one that's interested in those kinds of questions, like really being able to have more understanding about self and about why we're here and what that means to you. And then there's stories that we have, right, from our past of what's created us, the spirituality or religious, whatever it is, up to today, and then how it is that you're wanting to move forward with that. So I see this as being a really kind of integral pillar to all of these different pieces, because it's really closely connected to stillness, which again is what the S in SAGE stands for. And the more still we can get, we're able to really listen into ourselves. And I have found so much meaning for me personally when I'm able to do that. And as I've been moving through this year of 2021, one of the things that I began doing again after COVID and all that was I began teaching Reiki training and certification at SAGE. And, there's always that, I think Wendy mentioned it before, like the healer is also being healed themselves, right? We're doing the healing and the work ourselves. This is part of why we're drawn to this, because we always get to progress and we always get to grow, as well as guide other people along the way and help people and bring people through maybe some places that we've been, or through places that they've only been, but we're able to kind of have an unbiased view. So as I've moved into teaching again, it's just been such a healing thing for me. And it's been really, I've been really grateful for that. I've been grateful for the students who've showed up that have allowed me to have that experience and allowed me to teach and allowed me to deepen into myself as I prepare for teaching, as I get into my process in doing that. It allows me to get still, and it allows me to connect with what I refer to as spirit or source. Everyone refers to these things as in different, with different semantics, but that's something that I just wanted to share for me and how meaningful that's been in my life. But I open it up to you guys also to share what spirituality means to you with this pillar.
I can go first since I do have to step out very soon.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it short. I think I think just spirituality is just the quality of being able to view ourselves in life with a focus on human spirit and soul, as opposed to material or physical. And I think it's for me, what I want to move forward with as far as spirituality goes for this year is to understand the spiritual component of I am loved as I am, right? So how can we use, how can I change my perspective to love others beyond, or love myself and others beyond our shortcomings and mistakes, because none of us are perfect by performance. So I think it's a very spiritual act to be able to love beyond ourselves, love beyond our shortcomings, and yeah, and be able to look at it as a spiritual journey instead of the physical thing that we see in front of us.
Yeah, just the striving for that, right? That being your goal, that being what your vision is, and then the whole process that it takes to do that, like to catch yourself in those moments, maybe when you're not loving yourself, or when you're having a difficulty in a relationship towards someone else, or how that feels in that stickiness that can happen with relationships, right? So I hear you on that, and thank you so much for sharing that, Sadaf.
Of course, I do have to go. It was so nice hanging out with you guys. See you
Yes.
soon.
Okay, see you soon. And
I've
we'll
got-
wrap up here pretty quick, but who wants to
I'm
go?
jump off as well. I've got a meeting, but yeah, with spirituality, to me, I think, you know, people wouldn't think it would connect to exercise or nutrition or mental health as well, but it does. And I think that each of these pillars can be spiritual as well. Like you can have like a spiritual experience eating, you can have a spiritual experience exercising, and like, you know, connecting with your body, like like your mental health can also be like spiritual. And so I think I love that like Sage again like connects all of these things, because I think a lot of people will not like implement the spiritual, you know, pillar as well, but it's so important with everything else like that Sage, you know, connects with.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we want to create space for people to talk about this if it's important to them. Absolutely. And thanks, Kaylee. I know you've got to sign off. So good to see you. We'll see you later.
Guys, bye.
I want to give you guys a chance to speak if you need to. And if you guys are done, we can also kind of wrap it up too. Does anyone else have any last things they want to say before we all sign off?
Oh, I just want to talk about spirituality. I like how Sadaf said about like viewing the world through our soul. So I like exploring like what drives my clients' worldview and like their core values. Because I believe, you know, healing not only comes from like these great services that we provide and like how much work the clients put in outside of sessions, but also within their community and then the support system that they built. That deep connection to like-minded people who share similar values, I feel is so critical in the healing process. So if like the client mentions their faith or their spirituality during our like first session, I always ask if they want to incorporate it into therapy, because I believe it's so pivotal in that treatment and healing if that spirituality is important for that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think that's something that's talked about very much, like in our formal education and training as therapists. And so I think being able to have a platform to be able to go there and like to be able to talk about these things, and like Kaylee I think mentioned earlier, just being able to say like I can talk about mental health, like it's okay to talk about mental health when other nutritionists might not have that much of a focus. So we gravitate towards places where we feel we can express ourselves in full. Absolutely. Any other last words? Vicki, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll kind of jump in terms of like a lot of the sessions for the spaces that I hold. A lot of it is looking at our relationships and also our inner worlds as part of our spiritual development, and feeling better when we do feel like there's a lesson that we've learned from an experience or an interaction. And so, yeah, that's sort of like where I really love like being able to hold that space for people that want to explore like the spiritual element of wellness and what's holistic.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Emily?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in because part of my focus as a therapist is supporting people who are experiencing religious transition. Their faith has changed from the way that they grew up or the way that their family holds faith, or people who identify with the phrase religious trauma, and they have had an experience where, you know, their spirit, their meaning, their tenderness was taken advantage of in some way in a religious or spiritual context. And so I think what's really powerful is not dictating the way forward, not saying like, if you've had these experiences, you have to end up here. But in my work and in Sage's work around spirituality, it's this openness of, we're going to help you heal what happened in the past that is not serving you, and help you build some meaning and some spirit and some well-being into your life, whether that includes religious language or not in the future. And having that openness and support for the places where spirit in really tender or sensitive ways has been harmed, and how to restore power and well-being to those areas.
I like how you said that word power, because I think that is a big part of what can happen with some of these experiences people have where there's an abuse of power. And that's why we take such care to make sure that all of us here, you know, our whole team here at Sage is not imposing our beliefs on anyone, right? But we all have our own beliefs. We all come from that space that is our years and years of history. And that's something that we really value, is to provide that collaboration with you on where you're at, but to make sure that you are always the one in power, that you're not having that stripped away from you in this setting of healing that's meant to be safe and for you and built around your needs and what you want. So thanks for bringing that in too. Sydney, did you have any comments you wanted to throw in here before we end today?
Yeah, just keeping it brief. I know that in my personal life, when I've gone through my healing, I'm still healing. I think we're all constantly healing from something, but
Wow.
I would have, nutrition, mental health, exercise. I'd have all these routines and I'd feel really like good in all those, but there was always a little space, a little piece that felt like it was missing. And I realized that was my spiritual practices and just aligning with myself. And I believe I agree with everyone's definitions of spirituality. And I think just it's a deep connection with the self, with the soul, right? And I think aligning with your purpose and just meaning and whatnot in your life can be a spiritual experience. And just, connecting with yourself on a deeper level, in a deeper way, provides so much meaning and so much purpose and helps guide you in life, in everything you do. And so spirituality is such a key component, and all of these things are. And I think that's what I love so much about SAGE, is the fact that, Emily, you mentioned we didn't really learn much about spirituality in our programs. At least I didn't, and definitely not nutrition or exercise, but I love that SAGE incorporates all of that. And because again, like, it's all connected, it's all so important. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like going in deeper with yourself is really what allows us, kind of bringing this full circle, to connect more with our people, like who's around us in our close circles, and then with our community at large. I mean, the more we are tending to those relationships, because we're tending to ourselves, we're able to do that. We're able to show up more for our relationships because we've tended to ourselves. Then it just has this beautiful ripple effect. And I just appreciate all of you guys so much. I really appreciate all of your insights and words that you've shared here with our community of people today. And I will do this again. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll talk soon. Thank you for spending some of your time today with us at SAGE Holistic Health and Wellness Center. If you like what we're all about, please consider supporting our nonprofit organization by making a tax-deductible donation. To do this, you can go to our website at www.sagewellnessctr.org and click on Donate in the upper right-hand corner. We look forward to spending some time again with you real soon. Take good care.